Hello and welcome to St Moritz in Switzerland, the oldest and most historic ice sliding track on the planet. It's the only natural track still in existence and the birthplace of skeleton. Hello everybody, Martin Haven, and alongside me multiple Olympian and aficionado of St Moritz, Ben Sanford. Ben, what is it about this track? It is Monaco of ice sliding.
It is. It's just such a beautiful track to slide on. Like you said, it's the only natural track in the world, and it creates a really different feeling when you're on the sled. It's so smooth and quiet, and you come out of some of the corners and all you see is white. Here you see the athlete at the top of the track. The top of the track is long and flat, and it's so difficult to control the sled because you have so little speed at the top, and if you start hitting these walls, it's just an absolute nightmare to be sliding. But when you get it right, when you're going down the middle of the track, you just want to relax and just sink into the sled and really let the sled flow. Another feature of this track is the corners aren't numbered. They all have a name and they all have some sort of historical relevance. So that's Wall, you're sliding into Snake now, and then you're coming into Sunny. And Sunny is an amazing corner. The pressure comes on so smoothly. It actually feels like you're getting some sort of massage when you're on the sled. And now you're going through Nash Dixon and you're lining up for Horseshoe. Horseshoe's in the middle of the track, and one of the things you can watch today is the different lines through Horseshoe. Horseshoe is really tricky at the moment, and so it's going to be fascinating to see how the athletes get around Horseshoe and if they can get out cleanly and not hit before Telephone. Sliding around Devil's Dyke, and now you're picking up a lot of speed. And then there's a right-hand combination down the bottom of the track. You have these 4 right-hand corners, and you have to do pretty much the same thing in every one of them. Try and get in early, steer out before the middle, and you just come flying down the bottom of the track. Top speed going into Martineau today is probably going to be around 136 kilometers an hour, and then uphill and across the finish line. And it's just so smooth, and when you get it right, it feels fantastic, and when you start hitting these walls, it's an absolute nightmare.
Well, track record set by Dave Swift, and the start record and the track record by Fabian Küchler of Germany, and those records are established anew every year because it is a handcrafted object. It's the same but slightly different every year. So Tomass Dukurs is our World Cup points leader so far with 6 races down. Here's one, all 6 of them. And we have now our top Russians back in the field as well. So Alexander Tretiakov, Nikita Tregubov, the now double junior world champion, is back with us. So we expect to see a lot of rivalry. Also, Sungbin Yun of Korea, enormously fast in training. But this track is a very different beast from day to day. Today it's a little cooler than it was in training yesterday. So is that going to change the ice, change the drive you need?
Yeah, it's been a difficult week in training. We had one day cancelled because it was too warm and the track was basically melting away. There's no refrigeration on this track. It is completely natural, and the temperatures were just too warm, so training was cancelled. We then had a shortened training week, so normally we have 3 days of training, 2 runs each day. We had only 2 days of training this week with 3 runs on the first day and 2 runs on the second. And now today it got cold again after the first day was cancelled. And today again it's a little bit warm. So, and that's going to really affect how the ice is. The race is in the afternoon, and we often race here in the morning when it's cooler, and so that's going to change the variables for the athletes. Yeah,
often when we come to the track at 7 or 8 in the morning, it's -18, -20. Today, lucky to be down to -2 or 3. Now, it's a big field as well. I mean, everybody wants to come and slide here. 28 athletes, quite a few of whom were here last week when there was a Europa Cup race, a lower tier of sliding, so they've got a bit of experience on the track. It was colder, probably faster then as well, but our top World Cup stars should be able to adapt themselves to the differing conditions today. We get our 7th World Cup race of the IBSF BMW season underway with Germany's Axel Jungk, the 24-year-old from the Oberhof track in the east of the country. This is also the European Champions, European Championships, so all the Europeans will be contesting that. And our reigning European champion is Tomass Dukurs. Last year, the men contested it at La Plagne. The women should have done, but in fact it was fought out in Eagles. So a little moment until the start clock is triggered for him. And Ben, there's something very special about this track for the athletes, but you kind of have to take yourself out of that and just focus on having a good run, right?
Yeah, you really do. It is a special track to come to. It's a special place, St Moritz. It's a lovely area of the world. But you're here to race and you're here to do your job, and it's the European champs today, and that's a big race for the Europeans in the field.
So it's not the longest, fastest start, but that little dink, the first wall, and this long straight that follows can kill your run right there.
Absolutely. Like straight away, you push hard at the start. You've got to jump onto the sled, relax straight away, and get ready for the first kink. The first and the second kink are crucial to developing speed as you go down the track. If you don't get the top of the track right here, you're not going to have the speed at the bottom of the track.
You see a lot of skidding perhaps through Snake, and then sunny corner, the shades over it, although there's not a lot of sun today. And then heading down towards Nash and Dixon, and Horseshoe rearing up in front of you.
Yeah, and Horseshoe's crucial to the bottom of the track. Horseshoe is in the middle of the track, but you really need to get that right. Axel just having a few problems going into Devil's Dyke there, just touching the wall. And these walls are rough. And the athletes aren't wearing any padding on race day, and so when you touch a wall on St Moritz, it's going to hurt. Nice lines down the bottom of the track. A little bit sideways there. Coming into Martineau.
Speed's not great, 128.8. We'll probably see up to 130s, maybe a little higher. So a 70.3. And that's another factor here, of course. You know, we go to Eagles for the World Championship. It's 40-second odds, you know, just under 50. Here, it's 70 seconds. It's not just historic, it's long as well.
Yeah, it is the longest track in the world. And so you have another 10-15 seconds where you have to be on the sled and concentrating. You see Axel here and Horseshoe just too high on the exit, and that's just going to push him across, and he's either going to touch on the left coming out of Horseshoe, or he's going to go very early into Telephone.
Yeah, there was a lot of taps there in training. He had a big steer in the middle of Horseshoe as well. Clearly wasn't happy with his line. Well, next up, 21-year-old Korean coming man Sungbin Yun. His progress this year, 12th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 2nd, 3rd. It's got to come soon.
It sure does, and he's been fast in training. He's been the fastest in every run, I think, this week, and he's looking good on this track.
Well, Dave Swift set the start record 27th of January, so last week, at a 4:84, 4:98 for Yun, which is quite a surprise.
Yeah, that's not as quick as I thought he would push today. But expecting him to set the standard here in this run, and we'll really find out how fast the track is after he goes down today.
600s up on Axel Jungk. Jungk was good all the way through Nash and Dixon, wasn't he? And really down to Horseshoe. Another low line, but no adjustment. He really had that where he wanted it.
Yeah, I'm not sure he really wanted that low line. It looked like just before the Horseshoe, he was trying to move the sled across to the left. Coming into the right-hand corners down the bottom of the track. So important to be smooth through here to generate that speed.
You see so much skidding often here, don't you? And that just robs you of all the speed. 128.8 was the top speed. There we go. 132.7. That's more like it. 82.5 miles an hour. Little rub on the final wall, but 9/10 up. No wonder Axel Jungk looked unhappy with his run. Again, track record 108.7, so we're a long way shy of that. It was much colder last week, though, wasn't it? I mean, it's much, much warmer than we expect here.
It is, and it was faster and colder yesterday as well. It's one of the things about coming to St Moritz. You never know when you turn up at the track in the morning how fast the track is actually going to be. It depends so much on the weather conditions. And Yun is looking so nice and relaxed here. You can see him looking to where he wants to take the sled. Sled's going in a straight line. Stays on Horseshoe long time here.
But he got a nice exit, didn't hit the wall, and away immediately goes our World Cup points leader, Tomass Dukurs, not hanging around. 4:98 the fast start from Sungbin Yun, 4:94. Well, I wonder whether he is more concerned about Yun or Tretiakov and Tregubov, or whether he just wants to go fast anyway.
I think one of Martin's aims for the season is to win every single race. I don't think he's done that before. And so, you know, he's keeping that hunger alive, and he's really wanting to win today.
Yeah, last year, 2 wins for Alexander Tretiakov, and as you say, he is 2 races away from the perfect season if we exclude the World Championships. So another win here would be a big feather in his cap.
Yeah, looking good so far, looking so nice and relaxed. Martin just makes skeleton look so easy.
Doesn't he though? 99.2, comfortably the fastest speed we've seen. And these fast four corners, I mean, how much pressure do you feel from the G-forces? Is this a high G track or not?
No, it's not really a high G-force track. The pressure comes on nice and evenly through most of the corners. You get a little bit of pressure on the exit of Martineau, you get a little bit of pressure in Horseshoe, but generally it's not a high-pressure track. It's a track where you really need to steer delicately down the track and really sort of feel and finesse your way down.
Well, he went from 2800s up halfway down the track to only 1600s in front of Sungbin Yun. So the fast four right-handers at the bottom were not working well from him. He was looking very pensive during training, but he's a very cerebral slider.
He is. You can just see him counter-steering there, pushing his right knee into the sled as he comes off Horseshoe, just to make sure that he doesn't touch the wall on the left.
Well, we always talk about how you can steer the sled with your head, shoulders, knees and toes. Mikhail Zakharov next for Germany, 21-year-old rookie in the World Cup, former ski jumper from the Oberhof track, like Axel Jungk. Zakharov looked good in training. And so far, we haven't seen anybody having a problem off that little dink in corner one.
No, and that's one of the things about World Cup athletes. They're the best in the world, and so you expect them to not have problems at the top of the track here. But I think as we go down the field, there will be some athletes that will struggle. Maybe there's a few, I think, that are having their debuts today, first time on the World Cup. And, if you want to see some interesting lines, you have to come out for the lower circuits and watch a Europa Cup race.
Yeah, they're the guys that remind you just how difficult this really is.
Oh, that's late, and it's a late line into Dixon. That's going to hurt him. Tapping there out of Horseshoe.
Not the hardest hit we've seen by some measure, but he's half a second down at the moment, only 96.1 kilometers an hour. The lowest speed we've seen. Now what can he find further down? And he's late everywhere, isn't he? The rhythm is not where he expected it to be.
Yeah, and with the four right-hand corners down the bottom, you really need to be in early. And if you start going in later and later, it just gets worse and worse, and it becomes harder and harder to finish.
129.8 at the bottom, 80.7 miles an hour, and we're going to say that is slow, 80 miles an hour with your chin on the ice, because, we're tough like that.
High standards here.
Yeah, we do have high standards. Well, he'll be disappointed with that to be so far back, 1.1 seconds. It is a long track. The gaps traditionally are going to be bigger here, maybe, even among the front runners than they will be at somewhere like Eagles, but this is where it all goes wrong for him.
Yeah, he takes a very late line going into Dixon, doesn't quite get the sled across, and that just makes it difficult coming out of there, and then he goes in too early into Horseshoe, and that just keeps him on the corner too long. And you can see him, he knows this, and he's trying to use his right toe there. He puts his right toe on the ice to counter-steer on the exit so it doesn't put him too much into the wall on the left.
And the head as well, canted to the right, and that shifts the weight. I mean, it's a real seesaw balancing act. Dave Krzyzewski of Canada, the 36-year-old from Brampton, Ontario. Former rugby player, and looks every inch a rugby player.
Dave's had some good results here in the past. He won a Europa Cup race here a few seasons ago, and talking to him yesterday after training and just finding the track really frustrating at the moment. And because the track is all about finesse here and being delicate on the sled, it can get really annoying if you don't quite feel the line, if you're not quite getting the sled in the positions that you want. You feel that you're overworking and doing too much on the sled, and that is frustrating. But Dave putting together a good run here, looks nice.
Yeah. Into Nash and Dixon, named after the 1964 Olympic gold medalists in two-man bobsleigh. And why are they commemorated here? Well, because they were members of the St Moritz Bob Club.
Dave doing a lot of steering in Horseshoe, but he got the line out. Looking relaxed down the bottom here. But you can see him steering quite a bit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to hurt.
And again, he's getting onto the corners later than he's hoping for, right?
Yeah, he is. I think that was bridge that he went into very late there.
29.2, 80.3 miles an hour. And the gaps are certainly opening up behind our race leader, Martins Dukurs, but we're used to seeing that. Dukurs leads by 1600s over Sungbin Yun. And our next three athletes, Axel Jungk, Mikhail Zakharov and Dave Krzyzewski, are separated by 1600ths of a second. So they're a second behind the front runners, but they're very closely tied together.
Yeah, Dave just touching on the beginning of the telephone corner as he came out of Horseshoe. I would say you normally want to have some height in Horseshoe and you want to use that to accelerate out, but too much height can hurt you sometimes.
There's the leaderboard. Martins, Dukurs, Sungbin Yun are front runners at the moment. What about Olympic bronze medalist Matt Antoine from the USA, the 30-year-old, rethinking all of his life last year, moving to sunnier climes to train, and now trying to rebuild his start process. Less of an issue here perhaps than any other track on the tour, because so much driving is involved further down.
Yeah, and that was an interesting start from Matt. He used the left spur, and you'll see most of the athletes using the right spur. It feeds into the first kink a little bit better than the left spur. So interesting choice from Matt.
So was he trying to avoid running up that kink entirely, or trying to go more directly at it and be pushed away a little less? I don't know.
Yeah, you're going to get a much more direct line at it. I'm not sure why he would choose that. Maybe he just feels more comfortable pushing on that side of the sled.
Little bumpy exit out of Nash into Dixon. Out of Snake, rather.
The combination after Horseshoe has been really tricky all week. And we'll probably see athletes as we go further down the field touching out of Horseshoe, out of Telephone, and then out of Shamrock.
There were some big old hits in training yesterday. And when you see it, you really wince, because you can really plant it in the wall. 130.5, that's not bad speed. That's going to put him into 4th place from 6th fastest, 3rd place. Yeah, but still a second behind, so a medal from there is going to be tough, with Russian Rockets Senior and Junior still to come.
Seems to be a little bit of a feature of this season that you have Martins and Yun and Tomass and maybe one of the Russians sort of in a group at the top of the field, and then everyone sort of a step back. You see Matt just skidding there as he comes out of sunny. So important to keep the sled going in a straight line.
And that's why he got high up on the wall in Nash and into Dixon. Willi Schneider back on World Cup Tour, because the A-team are here for Russia. Nikita Tregubov, he was the joint junior world champion last year. This year, he left everybody trailing behind. And that's the first athlete we've seen really working hard to keep the sled from breaking away under him.
Yeah, he was working really hard at the top. And the difficult thing at the top of the track is there's a delay from when you steer to when the sled actually moves. And so it's maybe a 1 second or a 2 second delay. You're trying to keep off the left wall, you're steering to the right, and then suddenly a second or so later it starts to move, and then you've got to adjust and try and not hit the other wall.
Little delayed reaction, and again, using the hips and the legs to swing out. He's not got control here.
He's looking a little bit uncomfortable on the sled, but he's putting together a decent run. I mean,
2100s back in 2nd place at the moment, ahead of Sungbin Yun on splits. But the gap is opening up. 98.6, not good. Martins Dukurs 99.2. So he needs something very special down at the bottom. 131.5, that's quicker than anybody's been, apart from Sungbin Yun. So will he close the gap? Not quite. 2600s behind, he's in 3rd place. Well, that might have answered another couple of questions for Willi Schneider. He's got a very phlegmatic attitude. They will try things, and if they don't work, okay, it's a World Cup race, but you've learned something. And funding is about the World Championships.
Here you see Horseshoe, and you can see him just pushing that left knee into the sled and trying to get that down steer on that line out of Horseshoe. And he did a lot of steering down that in that run.
Yeah, right from the moment he got out of turn 1. Well, next up is Tomass Dukurs, our older Latvian brother. He started back in 1998, the year post Nagano, and in the World Cup team in 2000. Now 34 years old and as competitive as ever. 5:02 getaway leaves him just 0.08 of a second off the lead set by his brother.
Looking very comfortable and relaxed into the sled. So important to relax and really sort of allow the sled to run on this track.
The thing that fascinates me most about these two is that they share everything. Martins wins almost everything. Tomass has beaten him once in his World Cup career, and only once, and yet they still share everything.
Yeah, they're a great brother combination. Like they get on so well, they share everything, and they're each other's best coaches. And they're always working together, always discussing how to they can work on things and become faster, and I think that's part of the secret to their success, is that they do work so closely and they do share so much.
Well, like Matt Antoine and like yourself, he's quite a tall athlete. Does that help you when you're sliding on a track like this that's so long and fast?
Wow, that's close.
Man. 109.29. Tomass Dukurs 1/100th of a second behind his brother. Wow. Now, said he's only ever beaten him once in a World Cup race. He came from deep in the field to win in Sigulda, their home track in Latvia, the track their dad operates and where they grew up. 1/100th of a second between the brothers. Oh boy. Now then, what can Alexander Tretiakov do? The Olympic champion, the reigning world champion, the 31-year-old Russian rocket.
And former world champion on this track.
Yep, took the title here in 2013. 900s faster at the start, but how much of that has he prejudiced with that big, long, leg-flailing slide? And again, look.
You can just see the sled wobbling underneath him. It's moving a bit too much. It's a wall, and nice line from wall into the snake corners.
And it's very gradual the way you build up speed here, so there's no G-forces pushing you into the track. You just skate around. And he's already behind by 900s.
Yeah, he's not having a great time here.
And again, you can see the track. He's meandering around, left to right.
Yeah, and a bit of a touch there out of horseshoe.
Sungbin Yun in third place, 1600s behind what is effectively a dead heat between the Dukurs brothers, but Nikita Tregubov was only 2600s behind at the end of this mile of ice. Tretiakov's already twice that behind. Massive margins, good speed, but all too little too late. Wow, 6 tenths back. And he's in fifth position behind his teammate, but he's 3300s behind Nikita Tregubov.
Yeah, Alex isn't going to be happy with that.
No. Well,
just didn't have the control at the top of the track, and that really affected his speed the whole way down.
We haven't seen him since December. He stayed in Europe when everybody else went to North America. But like Tregubov, seemed to have very little control. Big skid there.
Yeah, just trying to avoid that wall on the exit of horseshoe and putting the sled into a skid.
Entertaining first heat already. Next up is Dom Parsons, with Coach Eric Bonotis holding the Bromley Tech sled. This PhD engineering student from London now lives and trains in Bath. One World Cup medal in his career, season opener a couple of years ago in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And a 5:05, it's a moderate start for Dom, but controlled nicely. And you can see, you can't see anything apart from the front profile of the runners, which shows that he's actually got a little more control, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Looking comfortable on the sled's going in a straight line.
See the marks that the sleds have left. I mean, that's quite unusual to see skeleton sleds making marks this early in the race.
Yeah, it's one of the features of the track here, because the ice is natural. You can actually, like when you're sliding, and if you really wanted to, you can concentrate on the lines that the other sliders have left and see the lines of the track.
The track workers were here at 4 this morning shoveling snow because we had a big snowfall yesterday afternoon, evening and into the night. So they were digging out 6 or 8 inches of snow. Talking to Christian Reich earlier on, and he was saying that they had to build the track this year, not with snow from the mountains, but with snow blowers. And he said, as a result, the snow that's in the walls went in wetter, denser, more packed. And he said, if we'd made it with natural snow, there wouldn't be a track this week. It's only because it was artificially made snow that's given it that density to survive the warm weather.
That's interesting.
Yeah, fascinating things you never knew. 6th position for Dom Parsons, good speed at the bottom as well. 81.6 miles an hour. And that puts him ahead of Matt Antoine, Axel Jungk and Mikhail Zakharov. And just, what's that, 600s behind Alexander Tretiakov, which you take on pretty much any day of the week. But Tretiakov, a long way off the pace set by Martins and Tomass Dukurs. Top 10 down, a mere 18 sleds still to go here in this first of 2 heats in St Moritz, Switzerland. Martin Haven and Ben Sanford watching the action with you. This 31-year-old Matthias Guggenberger gets ready. Last warm-up race, if you like, before the World Championships start in Austria next Monday. How much pressure are they going to be feeling?
Huge pressure, I think. It's their home track. There's a lot of media build-up in Innsbruck about having the race in Eagles, and you want to do well on your home track.
Yeah.
You want to do, especially when you have a home World Championships. And so they've been building up all season for this, and again, working this week towards having a good result here, but I think the main focus is the next couple of weeks in Eagles.
Well, this is a much longer track. It's very different in nature, but it is a track that's maybe a good rehearsal for Eagles, because you have to be really still here a lot of the time on your sled, and that's going to be key in Eagles as well.
Yeah, it is, and although this track is quite fast, the corners don't come at you quickly. Like, there's always space between the corners here, and that's the feature of Eagles as well. You always have a little bit of time between the corners to adjust and get ready for the next corner.
Well, he started 8th fastest, but this is the slowest run so far. 11th, 1:28.2. He and Coach Mickey Grumberger are going to have to go back and think about what they chose for runners. There's Mickey now. I hear tales of a Legends race happening in Eagles for skeleton athletes. We've got Mickey, we've got Andy Schmidt, we've got Willi Schneider. We've got a whole host of very, very successful skeleton sliders. What do you know as a former skeleton slider and medalist?
I've also heard about this Legends race, and I got sent an email because my uncle was the world champion in 1992, so they sent me an email asking if he would be able to come and compete in the race, and I said no, he's lost somewhere in the forest in New Zealand.
Bruce is done. Okay, so Barrett Martineau now from Canada, 24-year-old ski jumping coach. Second World Cup season for him. Let's see what he can start. 4:94 is the quickest. 5:13. He really looks like he's got quick leg turnover, but somehow doesn't produce quite the speed you might imagine.
And Barrett's been having a tough time here this week. I think he was at his end's wits yesterday. He really frustrated with the track. Just it wasn't working how he wanted it to work. It's going to be interesting to see what he does in horseshoe today. He's been really struggling there. He hit the roof yesterday in the first run in training, and he's going to try and take, I think, a middle late line into horseshoe today for the first time. And so we'll see what happens here.
Late line from Nash to Dixon, who's right in the centre of the track.
Oh!
Well, there's the bruise on the shoulder that he's earned. Currently 12th place. And we're almost actually, as soon as you get out of the top 10 in that position where you've got 18 athletes going for 10 spots, it's by no means guaranteed if you go off 11th or 12th that you'll be in the second heat.
And I've been waiting all day. Martineau sliding, Martineau.
Oh, there you go. Obviously named after his famous sliding father, or not even remotely.
Not even remotely, but
named after Barrett Martineau, who was the first president of the St Moritz Bob Club. So yeah, Barrett Martineau comes in 11th spot ahead of Matthias Guggenberger. And I'm going to say it now, Guggy might not make the second heat.
yeah, and Barrett just, again, too long on horseshoe. That line just keeps him long on the corner, and there he takes a bit of a nasty hit before telephone.
Well, next up, fresh from bronze in the Junior Worlds last week, is Mattia Gaspari of Italy, the 22-year-old from Cortina. Talking about legendary sliding venues, there's another that sadly we don't get to anymore. Started back in 2010 at the tender age of 16. Whoa. And pops the spur, but somehow gets onto the sled and...
Well, he saved that
he's
amazingly well somehow.
Still somehow trying to shuffle himself back into the position he needs to be, because you can't just lie any old how on it. You've got to be in exactly the right place for the rock of the runners.
Yeah, you do. Like the sled is balanced underneath you, and especially on this track where it's so important to have a good position before you go into kink one, he's done exceptionally well to find that position and keep the sled going in a straight line.
And And also, of course, you talked about it before, you've got to explode off the blocks and then be zen calm before corner one. You can't be driving down to Horseshoe going, damn it, damn it, damn it, about the mistake you made 30 seconds ago.
No, and that's one of the features of sliding sports, is that things do happen really quickly, and if you make a mistake, you have to forget about it as quickly as possible and move on to the next thing. It's all about sliding the corner in front of you, or the 1 meter in front of you, and dealing with the next problem. And you have to, you're always dealing with problems when you're doing skeleton, and you have to just fix those problems as quickly as possible. And that's one of the amazing things about Martin, and why he's so good, is that he solves the problems before they become problems.
Well, good run from Mattia Gaspari, 10th place from the 13th fastest start. Now, the start was artificially slow because of the harassment with the sled, but top 10. Some bronze in the Junior Worlds 10 days ago or whatever. You know, that's a big boost from him. Just underlines his performance potential. But here,
see the sled just
he
bobbling around.
pushes it out as he gets 2 hands on. I tell you what.
Yeah, it lands on the saddle. That's not nice.
Hello, is that Cirque du Soleil? I may have a new performer for you. He really hauled himself onto that with a great deal of strength. Next up from Russia, 23-year-old St. Petersburgite, if that's a word, Pavel Kulikov. Pavel came into the World Cup team at the end of last season.
Oh, there's a lot of steering to stay off that left wall.
What did we see from Tretiakov and Tregubov? And we're seeing actually less of a drama for Pavel Kulikov, but it looks again like maybe they've gone for little control and little friction, and maybe too little control.
Yeah, from memory, it was a feature of the Russian team during the Olympic season before Sochi that they really wanted to have sort of wide spine runners with very little control. And, you saw it a lot in races. They were skidding, but still, if they could control it well enough, they were reasonably fast. And that's maybe what's happening today. You know, Willie Schneider, he's an old fox on the track, and he knows a thing or two, and he's probably got them on some pretty fat runners. And at the top of the track, that can be pretty difficult to control.
Yeah. And again, you know, normally the ice temperature here would be 10 degrees below, whereas at the moment it's hovering perilously close to zero, or melting point, as we prefer to call it. 129.8, not bad speed. 7th at the start. He went down to 9th place, but 7th position at the finish.
That's a good run from Pavel.
Yeah. I think this kid's got a lot of potential, actually.
He does. He's a very good athlete, and he's been having good results in lower circuits for a number of years now, and developing really well. And
never without a smile on his face.
No,
either.
yeah, he's a lovely guy.
Took a lot of the first dink, though, didn't he?
Yeah, he showed it. You really leaning into the sled to move it off that left wall.
So Pavel Kulikov in 7th place. We've got Russians 4th, 5th and 7th, Latvians 1st and 2nd. Now Kilian von Schleinitz, silver medalist in the Junior Worlds in Winterberg, the 22-year-old. His brother got bumped out of the World Championships in the German luge team just a week ago by Andy Langenhan. But Kilian and Julian both sliding.
Kilian's a big talent for Germany.
Again,
sort of coming through the ranks slowly. They've
so many strong Bavarians.
Yep. See him there just looking to where he wants to take the sled. Leaning a little bit to the right there. Push the sled around.
They were saying motor racing that the car follows the eyes. Is it the same here with skeleton?
Yeah, it is, and you can see there, like he comes out of Dixon and he's got his head tilted to the right, and eventually the sled starts to go to the right. A little bit of trouble there coming out of Horseshoe.
The speed isn't that great. 96.6 is 60 miles an hour.
Using his foot on the ice as well. Just
Yeah.
not quite happy with his line, and maybe just oversteering a little bit through these right-hand corners.
Well, Kilian, again, an occasional World Cup performer this season. Didn't go to North America. 130.1. Okay, there's decent speed. So keeps himself in the top 12. So Jens Müller, the coach, former multiple luge champion for Germany.
Yeah, it's good to see Jens back on the World Cup circuit. He was away for a while with some health issues and back this season, so it's good to have him back.
Yeah, he looks as healthy and happy as ever. So there's Kilian.
See Kailyn here, just in the second half of Horseshoe, really using his foot. He's got a low line in the corner, and he knows he has to steer hard to drag the sled off the corner. Otherwise, he's going to get pushed into that left wall.
Yeah, nobody's really had big height. Maybe the later runners will produce some of that. Martins and Tomass Dukurs, Sungbin Yun are lead group ahead of the Russian Rockets. Next up, Kyle Brown for the USA, returning to the World Cup foray from Concord, New Hampshire. Despite starting in ice hockey, apparently still has all his own teeth, which is something of a remarkable achievement. He obviously got out when he was still young.
He was here last week for the Europa Cup race and sliding well.
Well, what about that, you know, as a way of dialing yourself into a track that's as complex as this? That's got to have a lot of benefits for an athlete, right? Spending 2 weeks on a track.
Yeah, I think it does, and it's one way where you can sort of prioritise the races that you want to do well in as well. I know for myself, coming from a smaller nation, I didn't always have enough money to compete in all the World Cups, so what I do is I'll try and build up to certain races that I wanted to do well in, so spending extra time on the track. And the more runs down the track you have, the more familiar you are with it, the better your timing is, the better you can adjust to situations as they come up.
Nice looking run from Kyle Brown, 98 kilometers an hour at Tree. What's he got at the bottom? 130.7, that's good. He's in 8th position. This is a really good run, ahead of teammate and team leader Mattia Antoine. In fact, he's in 7th, ahead of Pavel Kulikov. Tuffy Latour, the coach, looks happy with that. And again, you know, if he just arrived and had 5 training runs this week, would he be, you know, challenging it for a top half-dozen position? Possibly, but possibly not. So that extra week may well have really helped him with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more training you get, the better. Here again, we see the line in Horseshoe. Like a lot of the athletes, quite long and low on the corner, but has a nice line out.
Big head steer going on. There's Kyle, looks happy with that, and rightly so. So, gauntlet has been thrown down. We're now 17 into our 28 deep field. We are fast running out of places in the second heat where the athletes get cut to the fast 20 only. So 32-year-old Japanese slider Hiro Takahashi, huge Jackie Chan film fan. We need some huge action from him here. 5:15 is the getaway, and that is the slowest so far, apart from Mattia Gaspari's faux pas.
Takahashi-san hasn't had the results maybe I thought he was going to have this season. He's been consistently in the top 10 in the last few seasons, but this season just sort of struggling to get back into the top 10 and sort of averaging, I would say, between 10 and 15th in the World Cup races.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, 3 seasons ago, the 2 Japanese sliders, and Hiro was one of them, looked like they were suddenly, it was all really gelling. They were in the top 10 and they were, you know, really making progress, and it's just kind of stopped. 97 Ks, 60.3 miles an hour, not bad speed. But is it going to be enough to keep in the race? At the moment, he is only ahead of Matthias Guggenberger of Austria.
And you can hear that sound on the track, and that's such a fantastic sound when you're lying on the sled and you're just accelerating out of these corners.
On 30.0. And he is in 16th place, so Googie pushed another sled further towards the precipice. Like one of those arcade machines, he's a pile of pennies getting closer and closer to the edge with every sweep of the arm that comes down.
You see the athletes when they finish here all staring up at the clock to see what the times are. And
all puffing and blowing, because you forget we're 1,800 meters above sea level here. Until you start walking up some stairs in the hotel, you forget just what a factor the altitude has. Well, next up is the new Kiwi slider, Rhys Thornbury. Born in Perth, Western Australia, lives in Oxfordshire in England. So somewhere in the mix there is some Kiwi heritage.
Yeah, grew up in New Zealand, has a New Zealand mother and father, and lived in New Zealand for 15 years, I think.
12th last time out in Whistler, a huge personal best for him. What does that do, Ben, when you get that first really big result and have a really solid race? Does that kind of then kick you on to the next level?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the difference between thinking that you can do it and knowing that you can do it. And that's a hugely different mindset. If you know that you can be top 15 in a race, then that's what you expect. And so that changes how you approach the race. And Rhys has been doing well in training.
Nice high line.
Well, a bit of a hit there, but adjusting well.
Well, 14th fastest start. He slipped down to 18th, but what about the speed? 95.5, not great. So down at the bottom, he needs 130s to try and rescue this and dig the fat out of the fire. Let's see what he's got. Oh, long skids, lack of control in those fast corners at the bottom. 127.5. He's going to be at the tail of the field and in the danger zone. So 11.24, 1:11.24. That leaves him in 18th place. And he is 4 tenths behind Matthias Guggenberger. So Guggenberger has a little cushion. I think Rhys is going to repeat his Whistler Giant killing act.
Yeah, Rhys hasn't spent a whole lot of time here in St Moritz. Came here for the World Cup last season for the first time, and then 5 runs this week, and not too familiar with the track. Just takes a bit of a decent tap there out of Horseshoe.
That's adding insult to injury there, isn't it?
Huge Taylor Swift fan, by the way.
Yeah. Next up, Hansol Lee of Korea, 25-year-old. The Korean program started in 2010. He was part of it then and remains part of it as we build up 2 years now to Pyeongchang, which I gather is now iced. So the infrastructure is yet to be completed, but the track is done, cooling is on, and ice is on it.
Yeah, we have the pre-homologation there in a couple of weeks, and it's going to be fascinating to see what sort of track they've built there.
Yeah. Again, you hear a very distinctive sound here. You can just hear the wind whistling as the athletes come by.
Yeah, it's such a gentle whistle, and yeah, when you're on the sled and you hear that, often on tracks the sled is rattling away, but here you have this sort of almost high-pitched.
And you've got 2,000 meters of ground underneath you to absorb the vibration, rather than being in a concrete channel on stands. Well, he was 19th only at the start, but this is a nice, controlled-looking run. 14th place on the split times. What's he got speed at the bottom? 129.5, not the fastest by any stretch, but enough to put him into the top 12 at the line? No, slips one to 14th.
Whereas Yun sort of burst onto the scene and was pretty amazing from day one. Hanson's been around for a while, but he's gradually getting better and better.
Yeah. Well, Richard Bromley looked relatively happy with that. Kristen was out in Whistler last week, or 2 weeks ago. I know Shelley Rudman would love to be here. She won the World Championship here 2013.
You see him coming out of Shamrock there previously, and then coming out of Leap here. Leap's the fastest corner on the track, and when you get it right, it just feels amazing, but doesn't quite get it right there and hits the right-hand wall before he goes into Martineau.
Now, Raphael Maier yesterday had a shocking final training run. If there was a cat around, he would have kicked it. He threw his sled, his helmet, his bag around the changing room, everything. Clearly very frustrated, and things just aren't happening for him. He needs a big break, and he needs it soon.
Yeah, I heard this. I heard that he was frustrated after training yesterday, but his times weren't actually too bad. I think it was maybe the 9th rank slider yesterday. And
if he could post a 9th rank run now, that would be an epic turnaround for his frame of mind. He looked very frustrated still this morning. A lot of scratching down into Sunny. I wonder what he needs to guarantee a spot in the Austrian team. He is behind Alexander Auer, I think, in points. And Alexander Auer not racing here this weekend.
I think one of the reasons why Rafa is doing the race this weekend is to guarantee that the Austrians get 3 places in the World Championships in the next couple of weeks. And so that's the aim here, and a little bit oversteering there to try and correct the line. And
20th at the start, he's now up to 19th position. He's going to leave Rhys Thornbury of New Zealand behind him up to 18th place. But oh goodness, 16th at the line. All right, well, he found something at the bottom, but that wasn't exactly a look of jubilation from Mickey Grunberger. There might not be any helmet thrown after that one, but I don't think he's going to be jubilant.
No.
130.7 at the bottom. Okay, that's kind of so-so.
He doesn't look too angry.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. Martins and Tomass Dukurs, 100th of a second apart. Could we be an hour away from a historic turnover from Tomass Dukurs? Only time will tell us. 20 sleds down, the race is full. Our start record holder this year, Dave Swift from Great Britain, next up, 31-year-old from Eastbourne, won the Europa Cup race that he was in last week. He did one of the 2 races. And look at those sprinters' legs. 484 is the start record, 503, not even the fastest of the competition.
Yeah, we really have a slow groove today, or a slow start.
Yeah, it was so soft. Fastest start is a 485 from Alexander Tretiakov.
Like you said, Swifty had a good week here last week. It was the first time he's won an international race, and you know, it feels pretty good to do that when you're in St Moritz.
Absolutely. If you're going to win anywhere in a Formula One car, you want it to be Monaco or your home Grand Prix. There is no home British track. This is the home British track, so it's a great place to post your first big win. 7th fastest start. He's dropped to 12th to 15th. And even in 15th position, well, you should be safe, but in 18th, you're definitely not safe.
He's just a little bit up on the sled, it looks like. Just needs to relax a little bit more into the sled, maybe just looking a little bit too much where he's going.
Oh, speed is low at the bottom, and he's out of the race. 20th at the split, he's not going to be in. 20th place, oh, he is just in the race, ahead of Rhys Thornbury. So Rhys Thornbury is bumped, but I'm sure Swifty knows that things were drifting away down at the bottom. How much can you feel as a slider? How well do you think you're going compared to what you see when you get to the finish line?
It's a really mixed bag. Sometimes you think you've had a terrible run and you look up and your time's amazing, and other times you think you're fast and you're slow. And in saying that, you can sometimes get it right, and you do have the right feelings. And like on a track like this, you'll be able to sort of feel the speed bleeding away if you're not getting it right.
Rookie Kenny Howard makes his World Cup debut. He was here last week racing Europa Cup. Known to his friends as the poor man's David Beckham. I bet you can't imagine why from that shot. So a couple of seasons of Europa Cup and Intercontinental Cup for him. Makes his debut at the age of 26 in St Moritz. Now, first thing that he will want to do desperately is to make the second heat, because that's a big step for anybody in a field of 28 who's not in the top 10.
Yeah, big moment having your World Cup debut here in St Moritz. Well done, Kenny.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see new names coming in. A little late on the exit there. 20th place off a 17th fastest start. Now he's got to be really clean and find some speed at the bottom. Yeah, 96.3, quicker than Swifty.
This is going to have to be really good through here.
Well, again, we're going to have to hit 130s down at the bottom here. He's still working hard on that line. See the heel come up as the knee goes in. Can he find speed? 129.2. He's going to be ahead of Swifty at the line, potentially. Is he in or out? He's in 20th. He bumps Dave Swift. Caleb Smith, the ICC coach for the British team. Also now a massive wine expert. Spends as much time doing his sommelier work as he does coaching. I'm hearing voices in my head that I don't need to be listening to. Kenny Howard on his debut then. Into Nash and Dixon.
Yeah, and just too long on Nash there, and that just puts him into a skid and going into Dixon.
Yeah, great view going away where you see how the skid starts to break out. Well, there he is. At the moment, Kenny Howard is in the race. Next up is the 32-year-old Spaniard, Ander Mirambel from Barcelona. And he won 2 races to start his season, North America's Cup races in Calgary. And again, what a way to start your year. Back-to-back gold medals.
Yeah, he started off really well and was doing really well in Calgary in the North America Cup races, and then back onto the World Cup. And
was what all the sliders say when you come out, even from ICC, which is the second tier of sliding, Europa Cup, North America's Cup, the third tier. They say, you know, the tracks are the same, you're the same, your equipment's the same, but oh boy, the competition is eye-openingly different.
Yeah, it is hugely different. Normally we would say the North America's Cup and the Europa Cup races are development circuits, and so you have new sliders there.
Ooh!
Bit of a touch there out of Horseshoe.
Yeah, being touched by an ice wall at 70 miles an hour.
As Guido, the former announcer on this track, would always say, Anders kissing the track out of Horseshoe.
Yeah, Guido retired after 26 years of announcing last year. He was in the truck a little earlier in the week. Really good to see him about, just as enthusiastic as ever. 129.3, little better speed than Kenny Howard. 21st place. Oh, and he's in. Bumps Howard by 0.03 of a second. Wow. So he came back from 23rd at the start to just claw his way into the field. And that was just a fraction less steering down at the bottom when you get out of Nameless and Tree and you really start to motor on.
High line here in Horseshoe. And just stays on the corner a bit long, and that does hurt when you hit out of Horseshoe.
Yeah.
But he's happy.
Well, he's in at the moment, at least for another minute and 10, 15 seconds. We have our two Swiss athletes coming up next. Marco Rohrer is the first, the 28-year-old. Got into the sport when he was a high jumper. He met Pascal Oswald in a gym, a man who you've slid against many years.
Sure did.
And he suggested that having those fast twitch jumper fibers might be a good idea to try headfirst suicide T-trays. And for a Swiss, St Moritz is a real talisman area, isn't it?
It is, and skeleton's one of those sports that once you try, it's pretty hard to stop. It's pretty addictive, sliding skeleton.
Yeah. Even when you retire officially, you're desperate to get back.
Yeah.
48.7, good speed in the first turn. 15th place at the start.
Nice lines from Wall into Snake and coming into Sunny.
Now, much is talked about home track advantage, but there's been none for the Swiss this year. Swiss championships aren't until March. Track wasn't open in December, so they've had no time on the ice because they've been away on World Cup duty.
Yeah, interesting situation for the Swiss. They have a track in Switzerland, but they don't get to slide on it a whole lot. It's only open for 2 months of the year, whereas most of the other tracks are open for 4 or 5. And so, yeah, there really isn't normally a big hometown advantage for the Swiss. And when they often have the national championships here over Christmas, the track has just opened up, and when the track opens up here, it's not nearly as fun. Some of the corners aren't quite right, and, you know, it can be pretty rough.
Yeah. Well, he bumps himself into the field at the expense of Ander Mirambel. So Ander 21st, Kenny Howard 22nd, Dave Swift 23rd, Rhys Thornbury 24th. All pack up their kit and get ready to watch the second heat. Marco Rohrer is in. And he gets the height late there in Horseshoe. You immediately see the legs come apart. He's steering hard there, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, and you can see him trying to get that sled off the corner as quickly as possible, but it just stays on there a bit too long. And then head up a little bit and just hitting that left-hand wall.
So next up is his teammate, Ronald Auderset, trying to make it into the race. We will have only one Swiss, whichever way this goes, because unless they tie for 20th place, one will be in and one will be out.
Looking nice and relaxed on the sled. A little bit of movement there in the runners. You just see them.
Oh yeah, really skidding away underneath them. And when you're steering to counteract that, is it just sort of your body's moving instinctively, or do you actually have to think about how you're reacting to the slide?
I think when you're sliding well and you're really feeling the sled and relaxing the sled, you're doing it instinctively. Like you're balancing on the sled and you're keeping it in a straight line. When you're not feeling the sled as well, then you're sort of forcing it a little bit, and you are sort of overthinking it. And thinking, I have to steer now, I have to steer now, you know. That's obviously not as good as just feeling the sled and going with it.
Height in Horseshoe, but he got a good exit. He was 20th, but he's dropped to 21st. He's behind his teammate. Incidentally, if you want to ask Ben or myself any questions that we're not covering at the moment, we have a new Twitter account at IBSF Announcers. And you can fire in some questions and we'll try and get those.
And he's done it.
He has done it. 1:10.95 by 500ths of a second. He beats his teammate out of the race. This is real dog-eat-dog territory,
yeah,
isn't it? You know?
Yeah, they started together and now they're finishing side by side as well.
Yeah. Well, he started 200 slower, finished a mile of ice 500ths faster. He's in. Marco Rohrer is out.
And you see how hard he's using his left foot here, but the sled isn't responding. It's not coming down to the level that he'd like to. And just keeps him a little bit high on the end of the corner, and that's going to push him into the left wheel.
Ronald Auderset is in. Next up is Joe Cecchini from, well, representing Italy from Toronto. Been struggling for pace at the start from the beginning of the season with a hamstring problem.
Oh, that's
5:13.
Really struggling there. Ooh. He was struggling with this during the week. Oh no. So frustrating when you're not quite on the sled properly and the sled's bouncing back and forth.
Just reminds you that running in a straight line on sheet ice on a tiny contact patch on rounded runners without an edge on them is not the work of a moment.
No, and it shows how good the top sliders in the world are, and they're making it look easy. It's like watching the top tennis players in the world play tennis. It's a very low line there.
Bumped away from the wall. 93.8. Top speeds we've seen there have been 99 kilometers an hour, which is 60 miles an hour. He's doing 58, which doesn't sound like an awful lot of difference, but makes a huge difference at the end of the run. Another big square-shouldered kind of rugby player physique.
Yeah, Joe, a police officer in Calgary.
Yeah. 1:12.53 for Joe, so no second heat for him. He's been kind of in a bit of the doldrums this season. Physically, he hasn't got the speed he wants. More questions than answers in training yesterday, I think.
Yeah, I think this week has probably been a difficult week for him as well. He's on a new sled again. I think he started off the season on a Bromley sled, and he used to slide on a Schneider sled, and now he's gone back to a Schneider. And you see here the lowest line we've seen in Horseshoe, and on the corner very long and very high at the end.
Because when you come in low, then gravity pushes you and you start to climb on the exit when you want to be coming down.
Yep.
Next up, another World Cup rookie, Kailyn Vascely, son of Urs Vascely, former Swiss and Australian slider. And he actually started his development career in skeleton with the Australians. Blew an ACL, his knee ligament, on the tourist run from Preda to Bergum that you can go and do from here. So fooling around with some friends, and as a result, trying to rebuild his fitness. He's now joined the Dutch team. So they now have a male and a female slider for the Netherlands. And in fact, the sled hand-built by himself and his dad. So on a shoestring family budget.
Yeah, Urs used to build a lot of skeleton sleds. He was the sled builder for three-time world champion Gregor Stali, and Gregor was always on a Vascely sled. And Urs is still making skeleton parts for other manufacturers, but he doesn't often make skeleton sleds anymore. But his son here on one of the homemade sleds.
Yeah. So Kailyn making his World Cup debut at the age of 20. He's done a little bit of Europa Cup, a couple of ICC races, that's it. Very inexperienced in terms of ice, even here. In fact, I didn't ask him, I forgot to ask him yesterday, because his dad's a huge Cresta runner. Didn't ask him how much experience he's got on the track alongside us here. The Cresta run, of course, runs down the valley from St Moritz to Celerina, the same as the bobsleigh track does. See how little speed he had on board, because he didn't even make it up to the flat at the finish.
Yeah, and took a nasty hit there before the last corner as well. You see him just using his foot and then skidding out of the corner, trying to compensate. Hey, you're coming out of Martineau, and the one thing you don't want to do is hit the bridge, because you don't want to get any splinters.
Oof,
and he misses the bridge, but he just slams into the ice there.
And our 28th and final slider is another rookie, and I don't think I've ever met a rawer rookie in bobsled or skeleton. 27 years old from Slovenia, Denis Laurencic. I said, what's your sporting background? Never did any sport before skeleton. Okay, so when did you start skeleton? This season. He started, well, in fact, he started the end of last year. He has done a total of 7 races ever in his career, including 2 last week here in St Moritz. So, yeah, this is the very, very beginning of a sliding career. And he said, I had a run on the skeleton. He said, I had to do some more. So suddenly he's created this sporting career for himself from no background at all.
Yeah, and I've been coaching Denis a little bit this season. I've been coaching him here this week and last week here, and lovely guy.
Yes, absolutely.
Travelled here from Slovenia by himself. He has someone from the Federation here helping him this week, but really doing it on a shoestring budget. And I gave him a set of runners to use today because his runners were just completely inappropriate for St Moritz, and learning a lot. Like he's struggling here a little bit down the run, but compared to how he was sliding at the start of the season, it's a huge improvement.
Yeah. Well, you know, 7 races. This is our 7th World Cup race of the season. Yeah. He's done 7 in his career. So absolutely, you know, at base camp here in his sliding career. Nevertheless, he has rocked up and represented his country in the greatest venue in our sport.
And you see Sarah there,
yeah,
the physio for Belgium, but a former Slovenian slider herself.
Well, she's having a year out as a physio. Everybody said, oh yeah, Sarah's brother. No, Laurencic and Laurencic, not the same.
Yeah, Denis just having a few problems at the top of the track there. It's difficult to control, and especially when you're new to sliding. It's a very unique sort of part of the track, the top of the track, yeah. Getting his...
A great example of when you don't have the knowledge to deal with the little problems, how they multiply, right?
Yep.
So he ends up 28th of 28th. Ahead of him is Kailyn Vascely, Joe Cecchini, Rhys Thornbury, Dave Swift, Kenny Howard, Anna Mirambel, Marco Rohrer. They all failed to make the cut. Our race leader, though, is Mattia Dukurs, 6 times a winner already this season from 6 starts. His brother Tomass, 100th of a second behind. Sungbin Yun of Korea lies 3rd, 1600ths back. But he might also be a bit player, as the big battle may well be between Martins and Tomass Dukurs. And that is going to be a mouth-watering prospect for our second heat. Now, we're going to have the women competing, mingling with the men. So the women will go first, so the guys get another hour to think about it. And then Tomass will come out second last in the field to try and beat his brother. Ronald Auderset, 20th, will go first. And everybody on page 3 of the scoring will be joining the fans trackside here in St Moritz. Hopefully you will be joining us as well for our second and deciding heat. And that will come up in a little over an hour and 40 minutes. Chance perhaps to grab some lunch. Up at the top of the track, great view here in St Moritz. So join Ben Sanford and me, Martin Haven, the second and deciding heat here, and see whether Tomass Dukurs, the older brother, will put one over on Martins.